You ever notice how a woman's silence can feel louder than her words? One minute she's texting you back with heart emojis, the next she's acting like you don't exist. It's confusing, it's frustrating, and for a lot of men it's downright humiliating. But here's the hard truth most guys don't want to hear. The moment she starts ignoring you, that's when most men start destroying their own chances without even realizing it. And that's exactly what we're talking about in this video. When she ignores you, don't make these 5 mistakes. Welcome back to the channel, gentlemen. If you've ever been left on red, ghosted, or suddenly treated like you're invisible after giving your best, you're not alone. Every man, at some point, faces this test. And trust me, how you handle it determines whether you earn respect or lose it completely. This topic is raw because it challenges the way most men are taught to respond. Society tells you to chase, to prove your worth, to show how much you care. But in reality, that's the quickest way to lose all power and self-respect. This video isn't about bitterness or revenge. It's about understanding the game that's being played and learning to move with control, confidence, and emotional discipline. So sit tight, because by the end of this, you'll never react the same way again when she decides to pull away. But before we start, listen carefully. What you see here in my channel is just a preview, not the full picture. If you really want to master the dating game and learn how modern relationships actually work, don't waste time. Rush right now to https://www.stoicapproachtolife.com, GVVLS, or go to my description and click the link below and unlock the real strategies, the real teachings, the real results. Don't just watch. Level up today. So, let's get started. 1. The power shift. Let's be honest, fellas. When a woman starts ignoring you, it messes with your head. Suddenly, everything feels upside down. You're replaying conversations, scrolling through old texts, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. One moment you thought you had her attention, and the next, it's like she's switched off her interest overnight. But here's where most men completely miss the lesson. That silence you're getting from her isn't just rejection, it's a power shift. And if you don't recognize that shift, you'll hand over all your control without her even asking for it. When she pulls away, she's not just disappearing for no reason. Something inside her is testing your response. Women, consciously or not, pay close attention to what a man does when things go quiet. Do you panic and start sending double texts? Do you call her name every hour, hoping she'll finally reply? Or do you sit back, breathe, and hold your composure like a man who knows his value? That right there is where the power shifts. The man who reacts emotionally gives her control. The man who stays calm takes it back. Here's the truth that stings. Most guys ruin their chances, not because she lost interest, but because they couldn't handle her silence. They turn into detectives, therapists, and poets all at once, crafting long messages to fix things. But she doesn't want fixing. What she wants to see, whether she admits it or not, is your strength when things don't go your way. Because a man's reaction under pressure tells her more about him than any date ever could. See, when she starts ignoring you, the natural instinct is to chase, to prove you're still relevant in her world. But that instinct comes from fear. Fear of losing her, fear of rejection, fear of being replaced. And that fear makes you do exactly what she expects. Give her your attention freely while she gives you nothing in return. That's not connection. That's submission. You're teaching her that she doesn't need to respect your presence because you'll keep showing up no matter how she treats you. The power shift happens when you stop reacting from desperation and start responding with discipline. You stop measuring your worth by her attention and start moving with quiet confidence. That doesn't mean playing games or pretending not to care. It means mastering your emotions. When you pull your energy back, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, You flip the dynamic completely. Suddenly, she's the one questioning what happened, wondering why you're so calm, why you haven't begged for her attention like everyone else. The moment you understand that her silence isn't a loss but a test, you stop fighting for control and start owning it. You realize your attention is valuable, your presence is rare, and your peace of mind isn't something to gamble over someone else's mood. That's the real power shift. When your response becomes your strength and her silence becomes your advantage. 2. Silence isn't defeat. When she starts ignoring you, the first thought that usually hits your mind is, I must have lost her. That instant sense of defeat can make even the most confident man feel powerless. But here's the truth. Her silence doesn't mean you've lost. It means the game just changed. The real question is, do you have the patience and emotional control to play it differently? Because silence, my friend, isn't the end. It's the part of the story that reveals who truly has the upper hand. Most men treat silence like a punishment. They panic. They assume they've been replaced, that another guy has her attention, or that she's done for good. That's when they start making their biggest mistakes, over-communicating, apologizing for things they didn't even do, and trying to buy back affection that was never for sale. The problem with this reaction is simple. It tells her that her silence has control over your peace. And once a woman realizes that her withdrawal can make you spiral, she knows exactly how to keep you chasing. But here's where you separate yourself from the crowd. By learning to embrace the silence. Think about it. When you stop chasing, stop explaining, and stop begging for a response, you create curiosity. She starts wondering why you're not reacting like every other guy who crumbles under pressure. She starts questioning if maybe she misjudged your confidence, and that's when the silence starts to work in your favor. You flip the dynamic from being the one waiting to being the one watched. Silence is a battlefield, and the calmest man wins. You don't need to break it with desperate words. You need to let it expose who's really in control. When she ignores you, she's observing how much power she holds. But when you remain composed, you show her that your emotions aren't up for manipulation. That's what unsettles her. Not your words, not your anger, but your composure. Because a woman's emotional intelligence is sharp, she can read insecurity from miles away. The moment she realizes her silence doesn't shake you, her perception of you changes instantly. Now, this doesn't mean you play cold or act fake. You're not pretending to be unaffected. You're genuinely at peace. You understand that your value doesn't come from someone else's attention, but from your ability to stay grounded regardless of what happens. You keep your focus on your goals, your fitness, your grind. Because nothing's more attractive than a man who knows how to stay in motion, while others are trying to distract him with silence. What most guys don't realize is that silence can actually work for you. It gives you space to reflect, to reset, to remember who you were before the confusion started. It's your opportunity to remind yourself that losing attention isn't losing value. Once you grasp that, you stop playing emotional tug-of-war and start playing the long game, where your calm confidence speaks louder than any message you could ever send. So remember this, her silence is not your defeat, it's your test. And the man who passes it doesn't chase, he evolves. 3. Stop chasing validation. One of the biggest traps men fall into when a woman starts ignoring them is the chase for validation. It's that constant urge to prove your worth, to show her what she's missing, or to get some kind of reaction, even if it's a cold one. But here's where the problem begins. The moment you start chasing validation, you give away your power, your peace, and your presence. You shift from being a man of value to a man in need, and there's a huge difference between the two. Let's talk about what most men do wrong first. The wrong approach is to overcompensate. She stops replying. You text again. She leaves you unread. You send a follow-up message asking if she's okay. She starts acting distant. You suddenly become more available, more giving, more eager to please. You might think this shows you care, but to her, it screams insecurity. You've made her attention your source of validation, and now she knows exactly how to control you by simply withholding it. Another wrong move is trying to remind her of your value. Some men start showing off, posting pictures, hinting about other women, or making exaggerated displays of confidence online. But here's the truth. Real confidence doesn't need an audience. When you do that, you're still reacting to her silence, still seeking acknowledgement, and still giving her emotional control. You're not showing strength, you're showing dependence in disguise. Now, what's the right way to handle it? The correction begins with awareness. You have to understand that validation should come from within, not from how someone else responds to you. When she ignores you, it's not your job to fix it or force attention. It's your job to remain grounded in your self-worth. Instead of sending another message, send your energy somewhere meaningful, to your goals, your fitness, your purpose. Silence is uncomfortable, yes, but growth happens in discomfort. Learn to sit in it without losing composure. The right move is emotional discipline. You don't chase, you attract by staying aligned with who you are. When a woman senses that her withdrawal doesn't dictate your emotions, it shifts her perception of you. She begins to see you as a man who doesn't depend on external approval, a man who respects himself enough to walk away from uncertainty. That kind of presence commands respect without you having to say a word. Correction also means reprogramming your mindset. You have to stop seeing silence as rejection and start seeing it as redirection. If she's ignoring you, maybe it's time to focus on yourself, refine your standards, and ask, am I giving my energy to someone who truly values it? That simple question can save you from months of emotional chasing. So remember, the wrong move is chasing validation to feel wanted. The right move is standing firm to prove you don't need it. Because when you stop chasing validation, you stop losing yourself. And that's when the real power returns. 4. The ego trap. Every man has an ego. It's that inner voice that whispers, "She can't do this to me." It's the part of you that refuses to accept being ignored because it feels like an attack on your pride. When a woman suddenly goes cold or distant, your ego kicks in like an alarm, and it doesn't want peace. It wants to win. It wants to prove a point, to show her you're not the kind of man who gets overlooked. But here's the truth. The ego is the loudest liar in moments like this. It makes you believe that reacting means strength, when in reality it's weakness disguised as confidence. Motivation begins when you stop letting your ego run the show. You see, your ego wants revenge. It wants to be noticed again, to be validated, to make her regret her silence. But your higher self wants something greater: peace, growth, and control. The difference between the two is maturity. The man ruled by ego reacts. The man guided by purpose responds. When you choose purpose, you move with quiet power. You don't need to prove your worth. You embody it. Letting go of your ego doesn't mean letting go of your dignity. In fact, it's the opposite. When you stop reacting from pride, you give yourself permission to rise above the chaos. You stop fighting battles that don't add value to your life. You start understanding that not every withdrawal is an insult, and not every silence needs a reaction. Sometimes the most powerful move is simply to do nothing, not out of weakness, but out of confidence. Because true strength isn't shown in how loud you react, but in how calm you remain. This is where motivation becomes transformation. When she ignores you, your ego wants to chase, argue, or prove something. But if you take a step back, breathe, and let your silence match hers, you create an unspoken message that says, "I know my worth, even when you don't." That's the mindset that separates a man who crumbles from one who commands respect. You're no longer seeking validation from her. You're giving it to yourself by refusing to act out of emotional desperation. Every time you resist your ego's urge to chase or control, you grow stronger. You're teaching yourself emotional intelligence, patience, and resilience, qualities that define real masculinity. And that's where the motivation truly lies. Because the man who conquers his emotions becomes unstoppable. He no longer needs approval to feel powerful. He already knows he is. So when she ignores you, don't let your ego drag you into a reaction you'll regret. Let your confidence speak for you. Keep working, keep improving, keep shining in silence. The best response is not proving her wrong. It's proving yourself right. You don't need to win her back. You just need to win yourself. That's how you escape the ego trap. Not by fighting for attention, but by rising into your higher self and remembering that silence is not your enemy. It's your mirror, reflecting how much discipline and strength you truly have. 5. Respect over reaction. When a woman ignores you, your emotions scream for a reaction. You want to text her, call her, or find some clever way to make her notice you again. You feel that fire in your chest, that mix of anger and confusion that keeps you checking your phone. But here's where the truth hits. Reacting out of emotion doesn't earn you respect. It just shows you can be controlled. If you really want to shift the balance, you have to make a choice that most men don't have the courage to make. Choose respect over reaction. Let's be honest. Reacting feels good in the moment. It gives your ego a sense of relief. You think, if I say this, she'll finally understand. Or, if I show her how hurt I am, she'll feel guilty. But the reality is, none of that works. When you react emotionally, you're playing her game on her terms. You're proving that your emotions depend on her behavior. And once she sees that, the respect begins to fade. She knows she can influence how you feel, and that's the last kind of power you should ever give away. Now let's flip it. Imagine instead that she ignores you and you stay calm. You don't text, you don't rant, you don't chase. You go about your life, focused, grounded, and unbothered. You're not trying to make her jealous. You're simply showing that your world doesn't revolve around her attention. That's when something interesting happens. Your silence becomes louder than any words could be. It communicates self-control, confidence, and dignity. It tells her that you're not a man who reacts. You're a man who commands respect through composure. And here's the persuasive truth. Respect always lasts longer than attraction. You can't make someone value you through begging or explaining. You teach them how to treat you by what you tolerate. The moment you stop reacting to disrespect or emotional games, you draw a clear boundary that says, I won't compete for attention I've already earned. That's power. That's leadership. That's what makes a woman stop and think, did I underestimate him? You see, most men chase validation because they're afraid of being forgotten. But the man who chooses respect knows something deeper. That attention gained through desperation is never real. If you have to fight to stay noticed, you're already losing. But if you walk away with dignity, you force people to remember you differently. Not as the man who begged, but as the man who couldn't be broken. Respect over reaction isn't just about women. It's a life principle. It's how you handle business, friendships, and challenges. The one who reacts emotionally loses focus. The one who stays calm stays in control. When she ignores you, your best move isn't to demand attention. It's to maintain self-respect so firmly that she can feel it, even in your silence. So don't let her silence dictate your worth. The man who keeps his respect keeps his power. And once you understand that, no reaction will ever be worth your peace again. 6. Reclaim your focus. When a woman ignores you, your first instinct is to wonder what's wrong with her or what you did wrong. But here's the truth most men never realize. The real problem isn't her silence, It's where your focus goes when she becomes silent. You see, attention is energy, and when you pour all that energy into confusion, overthinking, and emotional chasing, you drain yourself. You lose control of the one thing that truly defines a man, his focus, and that's exactly what you need to reclaim. Understanding focus is the key to mastering yourself. Every man has two kinds of energy, external and internal. External energy is when you react to the world, her texts, her moods, her decisions. Internal energy is when you create from within, your purpose, your vision, your discipline. When you let her silence control your emotions, you're living externally. But when you pull back and channel that same energy into building your life, you're operating internally. That shift is what separates the average man from the evolved one. Reclaiming your focus doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means managing them wisely. Instead of asking, "Why is she ignoring me?" start asking, "What can I improve in myself?" Maybe it's your fitness, your finances, your emotional control, or even your communication skills. The moment you redirect that attention inward, you stop reacting and start evolving. And ironically, that's when people start paying attention to you again, because focus creates results, and results speak louder than any chase ever could. Now, here's where many men go wrong. They think waiting quietly for her to come back is focusing on themselves. But that's not real focus. That's passive waiting. Reclaiming your focus means moving with intent. You get back into your routine, your hobbies, your ambitions. You start investing in the areas that make you a stronger, wiser, more disciplined man. Because when your life is full, one person's silence doesn't create an emptiness. You become self-sufficient, not emotionally detached, but emotionally mature. Educating yourself about your emotional patterns is also part of reclaiming focus. When you understand what triggers you, rejection, silence, inconsistency, you take control of how you respond. That's emotional intelligence, and it's the foundation of real masculinity. Women are naturally drawn to men who possess it because it shows leadership and security. A man who can stay composed under emotional pressure becomes a man others respect, both in relationships and in life. Think about it. Your time, your attention, your peace. These are your greatest investments. You wouldn't waste your money on something that gives you no return, right? So why waste your mental energy on someone who isn't reciprocating your effort? Reclaiming focus is about understanding your worth, protecting your energy, and choosing growth over reaction. When she ignores you, it's not the end of your story, it's the start of your awakening. It's your cue to stop obsessing over what you can't control and start mastering what you can, yourself. And once your focus shifts back to you, life begins to shift in your favor, because a man who owns his focus owns his future. 7. Walk away like a king. There comes a point when you have to stop waiting, stop guessing, and stop giving your energy to someone who no longer values it. That point, the moment you finally walk away, is where true power begins. But here's the secret. Walking away isn't about pretending you don't care. It's not about revenge, ego, or trying to make her chase you. Walking away like a king means you've learned the lesson, kept your dignity, and chosen peace over pain. It's the moment you say, "I know my worth, and I won't settle for confusion." When a woman ignores you, she's silently watching your response. She's not always testing you to be cruel. Sometimes she's observing how emotionally stable you are. Most men crumble. They beg, chase, or argue, thinking that persistence proves love. But all that really proves is emotional dependence. The man who walks away with confidence doesn't just shock her, he earns her respect, whether she admits it or not. Because kings don't beg for attention, they command it through their presence. Walking away like a king doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring about yourself more. You choose growth over games. You choose clarity over confusion. You choose to protect your peace because you understand that not everyone deserves access to your energy. You stop trying to prove your value to someone who already decided to question it. And that's when everything changes. Because your silence, when backed by strength, speaks louder than any speech ever could. Picture this. You stop chasing her attention and start investing that same energy into your goals. You hit the gym, build your business, improve your mindset, and focus on your vision. Slowly, your world expands again. You feel lighter, freer, sharper. That's when she starts to notice. She may not say it, but she feels it. That shift in your energy. That glow of self-assurance that no text message could ever express. Because nothing is more attractive than a man who knows when to walk away and still stands tall doing it. Engaging with silence in this way turns you into a man who is in control of his emotions, not controlled by them. When you walk away, you're not closing a door out of pride. You're walking into a new one built on purpose. And sometimes, that's when life rewards you with something better. Someone who matches your energy, respects your effort, and doesn't play games with your peace. So remember this. Walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the act of saying, I'm not angry, I'm just done participating in anything that costs me my self-respect. The king doesn't argue over loyalty, he simply removes his presence. The king doesn't chase validation, he creates it through his actions. When you walk away like a king, you're not losing her, you're finding yourself again. And that, my friend, is the ultimate win. At the end of the day, her silence is not your punishment. It's your opportunity. It's the moment the universe asks you, will you lose yourself chasing what's fading or rise by standing still? Every section of this journey has been about one thing, mastering your emotions and reclaiming your power. When she ignores you, don't react, don't beg, and don't break. Breathe, refocus, and remember who you are. The man who learns from silence becomes unshakable. Walk away with strength, lead with peace, and let your composure speak for you. That's how kings are made. And before you go, remember, what you've just watched is only a small piece of the puzzle. If you're serious about mastering the dating game and building real confidence in modern relationships, don't wait. Visit https://www.stoicapproachtolife.com AGVVVLS right now and get access to the full teaching. That's where the real transformation